Resilience. That's a word that we hear nowadays actually quite a lot. We talk about it a lot. It's almost trendy to use that word. But have we actually stopped to think about it? First of all, why are we talking so much about resilience? And second, what is, in fact, resilience? How about if we look at resilience in the way that, for example, you go in the winter out for cross-country skiing. It is a sunny day, not too cold. And then suddenly, while you are the furthest away in your round, the weather changes. The temperature drops, wind comes, sun disappears, snowstorm starts. And you're thinking, okay, what am I going to do? And you decide that you do your best and try to get home through that snowstorm, through that wind. Once you get home, you think, I'm resilient, I managed. That's one example. Another one could be that you have had a lousy day. Everything goes not according to the plan. That happens quite often. Your colleagues are seriously annoying that day. And on top of that, family members are not understanding at all. And you feel the bubble, coming up. But then you kind of like, okay, I'll count to 10. I'm not going to explode. And in the evening when you go to sleep, you're thinking, yes, I resisted my own negative feelings. I'm resilient. These are two different ways of looking at resilience, but not necessarily the reasons why resilience is a trendy word today. In academic circles, resilience is defined depending on the disciplinary. It is a social sciences, natural sciences, political sciences, climate studies, you name it. Everyone has a different definition on resilience. So perhaps we'll start looking at resilience in the way that it is, the reason why it is so trendy is to do with today's world. It is to do with the fact that we thought that actually world was kind of already. There was an order. There was rules, there was agreements that hold the time, and pretty much also values. Okay, there was a little bit differences in opinion, but yeah, there was certain level of that. Specifically in 1990s, we thought globalization is almost the answer to all the problems. No challenges, no crises, no chaos, and the world is ready. That made us actually quite lazy. And one could argue that we kind of lost resilience. Then when things started to change, suddenly a lot of challenges, uncertainties, crises, even feeling of chaos, not understanding what is happening, insecurity hits. And then we start calling for resilience. But the interesting part there is that often we are calling for a strong leader, someone who takes control, gives us that security, brings back the order, and we think that that might be resilience. We're looking back. We say, you remember the good old days. Were they so good? 1970s? Nuclear war? Energy crisis? Quite a lot of wars, huge terrorism. But do we remember this? No. It kind of looks like good old days. So exactly where do we look when we say bring back the good old days? It was so much better before. This is very important because we are living now in transformative times. There is a huge technological change that changes our societies. We don't know exactly what comes. Again, uncertainty that brings insecurity. There is a massive great power competition going on, which challenges many of those issues that we thought that were already kind of solved in a world politics. We have, together with this technological revolution, also effects through social media and many other issues that our political field is changing. Again, often people say, I wish the times would come back when we knew exactly what each party represented and there wasn't too many of those. But was that so good? Many different views in democracies are not too bad, because development brings us usually good things as well. But our human nature is like that we want to resist the change. We become defensive and actually rather reactive. We forget to be proactive. That's kind of the key, perhaps, when starting to look at resilience in rather different way today. And while we are procrastinating, while we are reactive, while we are closing our doors, windows, and hoping that the train passes, which will not do, that time also malign actors might use the opportunity to push their own interests and, in fact, weaken us. This is really important to think about it, that big context, because we have kind of lost perhaps the view of the forest while we are looking at one tree. And on top of that, we all are looking at different trees. So there isn't necessarily that kind of a common understanding even of that, oh, we all are, by the way, in the same forest. I give you two examples perhaps from the Finnish past, interesting ones that are worth of thinking, even if I just said, do not look too much backwards in the history. Sometimes it is good, but you need to then translate it to, of course, today's world. So in 1920s and 30s, when Finland was a very young nation, next door, very big Soviet Union, whose official policy was the world revolution, meaning control beyond its own borders. So this situation, of course, Finnish policies were not perfect in any kind of a way, but this kind of a situation, when you need to start building a nation, you need to find that national, perhaps, resilience. It is not written anywhere that this would have been a conscious decision, but when Finland chose its schooling system, it interestingly brought together people from different backgrounds. So all the children around that one area where was one school came to the same school. Also, the parents met through the school. The school became a vocal point of a community. The people shared the same base for information. They didn't necessarily need to agree, but they learned to know about each other, and as a default, a certain level of trust were built in that community. Also, if a crisis or difficult situation hit, that community were ready to work together. And again, the basis was not that we need to like each other. We need to, in certain level, trust and know how to work together. The other one was the obligatory military service. Similar type of an idea. You bring together, although then it was only young men, so young men from all over the country, different backgrounds, doesn't matter whether it is an urban setting or a city or from the archipelago, north, south, east, west, and what your social status is. You need to work together. There is a common enemy, and you need to learn to work together. Again, similar type of a result. And kind of thought out, trust building, and working in a community. So these two factors, one could argue, that in fact were extremely useful with the Second World War and then in the Cold War time, when Soviet Union challenged more than once the existence even on the Finnish independence. So for me, the lesson from these two examples is definitely that we need to think about the trust and working together in perhaps a different way than we thought before. We don't need to agree. We don't need to be a same background or even same values necessary. But we need to learn to trust beyond that. And we need to learn to work together. This is many ways nowadays, not only in Finland, but in European countries and beyond. Countries have woken up a little bit on this factor that how to work together. Even so, we are scared. We have lost a little bit hope for the future. It's not only the politics or the technological changes, it is also the climate change. That is a factor that needs to be taken into consideration when talking about resilience. But even there, I would argue, again, a certain level of trust and working together is important. Now, I made quite strong argument for the fact that we need to have the trust and working together. But is that enough? No. Actually, it's not. If we want to have a comprehensive and strategic resilience, we need to add creativity to that formula. So trust, working together, and not losing the creativity. This is, in fact, the strength of us humans. We are able to think creatively. And therefore, I would like to offer you a definition or conceptualization of modern resilience that touches us all. It would be the capability to face uncertainties, challenges, crises, and chaos without losing our ability to make decisions, think creatively, and see the future bright. Thank you very much.